All right, here we go. Back again, Chris. You excited for the next episode?
Very excited.
All right, we got a really fun guest today actually coming on. This is a great individual. This individual is incredibly accomplished in many worlds. He has been a top salesman around the world. He's actually done some incredible deals that have been in the terms of millions of dollars. He's negotiated with YMCAs across the United States of America and actually broke into the film business working with the co-creators of the Muppets, and was one of the major forces behind the PBS show Lomax and The Hound of Music. Talking about music, it brought him to his true passion, which he is now a composer on feature films and TV pilots across the United States of America. A very dear friend and business partner of ours, Mr. Gene B. Hale III.
Hey, Joe, thanks for having me.
There he is, the man with the hour and the power, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Gene, in the flesh.
Yep, great, doing great. I love the way you led me into the music and everything. That's great.
Well, that's your life story, Gene. Those are the accomplishments that you made. You've done incredible with your life, really. I mean, you started breaking into the business in a completely different way. I mean, you went from going through music into sales, back into music, into the film business. You know, tell us a little bit about the start of your journey. What kind of brought you into this crazy world we call entertainment?
I started on drums, got a nice foundation for music, and then I started playing in a little group we formed with a couple guys that both played guitar, and I was playing drums. And people didn't show up to practice and didn't put the time in, so I started trying to tune my drums funny and like create notes out of the drums, because I'm like, if you guys aren't going to do the work, I'll write, on the drums. I'll write compositions, kind of thing. So I upgraded. I say upgraded, but they're both equally valuable instruments. But I went to bass because it grabs the melodic stuff, so you can do a lot of composition with melodies, and it also couples with percussion. I either wanted to go on tour in a rock band, which my father, who hired a lot of former number one hit kind of wonders that would work for his music stores and malls in New Jersey and stuff, and he strongly encouraged me not to do that.
As you mentioned, your dad, very smart man. I had the pleasure of meeting your father a bunch of times. He's real smart dude. He ran some pretty big stores that were actually pretty famous in the New Jersey malls. What was the name of those? Because I know a lot of listeners may know the stores you're talking about.
So when the regional malls started popping up in New Jersey, Rockaway, I think, was one of the first ones.
Yeah.
And there was bats flying through the building when he started his first store at Rockaway. This was in 1977. But people went to my dad for pianos, and Bon Jovi came to him trying to get a piano at one point, and
So essentially, you're saying any young punks used to hang out in the malls when they were kids and teenagers. They ran around into those organ stores and would bang on the keyboards and leave. Those are your father's stores. Those are your father's.
And I started selling in those stores for him at like age 13.
Well, now that transitioned you into getting an amazing opportunity working with the folks at PBS.
Yeah.
And the show that eventually came to be would be Lomax and The Hound of Music. It's a great show. I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. Now, tell us, you had a fascinating story how you were around the curriculum, and you really were a huge cog in getting that machine moving forward.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that experience, because you took that experience, combined it with your passion of TV, film, entertainment, and you kind of helped develop this show with people. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's a fascinating story.
Yeah, thanks. It is. And so, back to kind of, to piece together where we were talking about in my journey, I opted not to go on tour with a band and take over my father's business. So I actually left school on September 11th, 2001, the day, and drove from Indiana back to, I'd met my brother at Penn State and stayed at his frat house. It was really eerie and weird, but I was leaving school because Dad had partnered with the Muppet co-creators and the Sesame Street co-creators, and they started National Lampoon magazine when they were at Harvard, which became all the movies we know, Animal House, Caddyshack.
Yeah.
And so I am 21 years old, and I'm now business partners with Christopher Surf, Norman Stiles, and these, I was just like asking so many behind the people questions. What was it like to work with, you know, Chevy Chase? What was it like to, you know, and find out what these people were really like? Because you see in the movies and they're brilliant, but you know,
Gene, you did an amazing job getting involved with this thing. And what's incredible is how you took your passion and then you jumped into this world kind of, you know, head first.
Yeah.
You leave school, you go out there, you're ready to jump completely in. And now you're involved with Lomax.
Right.
And that became a pretty nice show. I mean, it was a great show. You had a great season run on that. Tell me a little bit about the experience working on PBS and then how that kind of guided you into pursuing a career in film now, because you have such a diverse kind of aspect of what you're working on right now.
Right. So, you know, went from, you know, being in my early 20s, working with Christopher Surf, and the what we did was we partnered as the national outreach in perpetuity to Lomax the Hound of Music. The show was delayed for, I want to say, 5 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So it aired in 2008 eventually. I started this in 2003, okay? And we were the outreach. So this is all based on a curriculum. All PBS shows are based on a curriculum.
Sure, yeah.
And so the Sesame Street folks, essentially these co-creators, Chris Surf, Norman Stiles, were essentially hired to create a Muppet show. They had done Sesame Street, Between the Lions, which has been on air for a long time. And then they did Lomax, which is this music show based on the music curriculum. So what attracted me to it was I was kind of disappointed to not be going into music professionally.
Yeah.
But I also liked the fact that the whole idea was that we make our country more musical, right? Which to me, it was like, that was like a world that's awesome. I would love to have a hand in that.
Yeah.
So I took it as a mission-driven kind of an approach, but the show was delayed. So, you know, people were I don't think our partners necessarily were going to continue doing it, but we were the cart before the horse. I went out there calling one YMCA at a time to sign them up for this music curriculum that actually met the NACI criteria of their music and movement of their preschools. And YMCAs were the largest childcare provider in the world. 500,000 preschoolers a day could potentially get this program. And then it mirrors the show. So I was pitching this before. I was like, yeah, the show's going to come. The show's going to come. All along, I built from 0 to 750 locations, reaching 150,000 kids. And then the show aired. So long story short, you know, it was a great show on PBS, and it mirrored what I had done. But it would not have actually finished if my dad and I didn't keep marshaling the project forward. It would never have happened. So it was really cool. And, you know, from there, got into, starting a family and, switching careers, and music kind of disappeared. So along the way, I was like, you know what? I'm going back into music, and I'm going to do it through the movie business.
That's great. I mean, the one word that comes to mind with Gene is persistence. And the one thing that you said, you persisted with your father back in the then, and then you met Joe, and you persisted with regard to, you know, following your dreams and incorporating music into films, and it's happening. It's amazing.
You know, a few years go by of trying to do this to ultimately circle up and do soundtrack work. And I always wanted to be an actor. I played a lot of bands on stage and everything, but I met you. And then it started happening.
Yeah, it's interesting how we met.
Yeah. Oh my God. So, but that was 4 years in, and I told myself I was going to quit if I didn't get anywhere in 5 years. Tried to fail up on purpose because I knew people. So, you know, I people will take my call. They know I'm not a serious filmmaker. They know I'm trying to do it. So I put that out there to the universe, and, you know, I believe in that stuff. Law of attraction. We met.
Yeah, no, it was interesting because I think it was your friend Patrick, right? I think that introduced us. Is that what it was? Yeah, I think
a couple stand-up comics.
Yeah, a couple stand-up comics.
Patrick knew you, and my guy Frankie knew me.
Yeah, and they knew each other. Right?
They knew each other.
So it was really funny because I think Antoine and I were out on one of our nights in the town where we go and go out to eat and hang out. We always end up at this barcade down on like St. Mark's.
Yeah.
You know, downtown in New York City. And we ran in. They recognized Antoine from his show on TV.
Sure.
And they started talking to us, hanging out. And eventually your buddy Patrick's like, I got this guy, Gene Hale, you got to meet him. And he really wants to break into the business. Gene, finally, yeah, give him our number or whatever. We can hang out and then see what happens. But you kept calling. It was great. As soon as we started talking, it was almost like, it started really working, which was good.
Yeah.
Because, you're again, like Chris said, your persistence was huge to break into the business.
Joe, thank you first and foremost. What an experience. And I still say this, but yeah, I mean, I like to say that you've been mentoring me in the film business, the Joe Gawalis Film School, and I've been fortunate enough to get like a backstage pass to learning the ins and outs of all of this the right, correct way, right? Because I think the beauty of why we work really well together is that I didn't have any bad habits. Didn't show up saying, oh yeah, I made a movie or I went to film school and I got a bad habit because I do this. I was kind of fresh with it.
Sponge, yeah.
Right. So, everything I've learned in this business, I've learned correctly.
I would never. You're overstating my capabilities.
I don't think that at all. I think I'm understating.
One thing I see, I hear the theme is the mentors when you were young in the music world, and mention you as a mentor in the film world, like the same way. Even you and John have inspired me and be mentors in the business. It's just it's amazing that you can have a gift and be able to pass it on versus just holding it for yourself, and that's what I find really special.
Yeah, it is very special about Joe.
Thank you. I always say every day I don't think I know anything. I just do what I think I know is right and how to make that. I think there's so many ways you can break into this business, so many ways you can do things probably 1,000 times better than I do or anybody does. But I think it's what works for you. And I think the key is people need to have the right intentions.
Yeah.
What do they want to do? If you're going to bring people around you, do you want to actually work with these people and help these people? That's the key.
Yeah.
Like, do you want people around you to be successful?
Right.
If you want that, I think you're doing the right thing, doing anything. But I appreciate what you said. And then you get the opportunity, you come to us and you say, I always actually wanted to be in front of the camera as well.
Mm-hmm.
And because of this weird circumstance of a pandemic, we now go from doing a very large product to now doing a passion project, which gets you now the ability to say, I'd love to be in front of the camera. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden,
he's in front.
You're now in front of the camera, not only in a small role, but the co-main antagonist, actually with Mr. Chris Victor right here.
Yeah.
You two played the two antagonists, kind of like a Marv and Harry type characters.
Yeah.
And Uninvited for the Holidays. And you two really, I think, stole the show throughout. I mean, everybody was great in the entire movie. Dan, Trace, Kylie, John, Louis, everybody's fantastic in the film. But you two really have these scene-stealing, goofy scenes.
We were lucky enough to be those two goofballs that you wrote, and that's the way I see it.
Yeah, tell me about it. Was it first experience?
It was just like, this isn't even happening. I kept thinking, pinching myself. I'm like, am I really in a movie right now with this guy? And it's like funny. And I love creative, so I'm just like, we're making art, and it's this much fun.
It's great.
So I really enjoyed it, and I tried to give everything I could to you.
Yeah, you were great. Yeah, no, absolutely, you did. Yeah, you did.
Where it's set. When you go on stage, it's hard to sometimes perceive what you look like.
Sure.
Doing certain things, you have to really know yourself. And I had always imagined what it. I think a lot of people do that. What would it be like if I actually got a chance to act? It's not what you think. There's a lot of. It's like playing a complex piece of music. It's so many subtleties in this whole thing.
Well, Chris studied acting for a very long time.
Yeah.
You went to major acting schools. You've been in this business since the 90s.
Yeah.
Acting, pursuing acting.
Yeah.
Really, having mentors that are some big league guys in the business. Yeah. And Gene, you're getting to act like your first scene is with somebody that's been in the business for over 20 years and has dedicated his life to the craft. How was it working together? Both of you guys. Love to hear from both of you. Like working now, you're working with a guy who's never acted before.
Yeah.
You're working with somebody that's been in the business for quite a long time that has basically given his life to acting. How was the dynamic between you two getting to experience that?
I highly respect what you brought to the table, your level of commitment to the character. Like you actually said how you would perceive yourself, how you would look, but it didn't seem like you were concerned about how you looked at all. You were totally there as Tom, and you gave me a lot to work with. So like, I'm grateful because it made my acting look better also. So that was my take on it. So thank you.
Yeah. I looked at it like, hey, like we're in a band together right now, and we're gonna like create something cool together. That's the way I looked at it, like a partnership.
It was great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, I wish it didn't end.
No, well, it doesn't have to.
I'm invited for the holidays too.
I get, but I got to, just talking to you, I get the vibe, and I remember what it was like, Joe, on set and doing that, and the takes, and there was never a time where it was like this. I wish I was doing something else.
Exactly.
And you guys kind of got to play the goofballs in the movie. So, how was it? I mean, a lot of you guys, especially for Chris, which was great, both of you guys were the people the kids laughed at the entire time. How was it in getting over the part of, now I just have to kind of look like a fool and enjoying that process? How did you guys, because I know you guys both come from different worlds.
Yeah.
And how do you feel like making kind of a fool of you? So, Chris, you don't play these kind of roles often. Gene, is it new for you doing it? And Chris usually plays like the heavy and stuff. He's coming in there being like a tough guy in a lot of things, or a detective. And now he's a complete goofball. You're a goofball. How did that kind of feel, getting to do that dynamic together?
I mean, you have kids. I don't have any kids, but I was happy for my friends' kids to see the movie, because it was funny. I remember, discussing the character with Joe, thinking I have to speak in a certain way. And he was like, no, this is written for you. And the writing, which I always compliment Joe with, the writing, if you trust the writing, it's there. It was very funny. And then the slapstick element that we had together, and you going along with that, and it was just seemed effortless. You really brought it, which is great as a first come. And I didn't feel foolish at all. I felt like this is great, making kids happy.
Yeah,
that's the character.
Well, thanks for saying that. My experience with mentors and paying attention to that stuff and realizing getting pushed is good for me. That was perfect, because I don't think you knew that. I don't think I ever even maybe told you this, but it was like a mentor situation in the acting realm. I knew he had a ton of experience. I knew I had none, but I'm like, let me play up to this guy, or try to, because he's been in this room before, and I'm like, it was brand new for me. So
how did you feel, again, working on a film for the first time again as an actor? People don't realize, you got to set it up. You got to shoot your wides. You got to go there and get your dolly shots, and you go in for your mediums, and you're going in for close-ups, and you're shooting, 15 different takes.
Oh, yeah.
Over and over again. How was that as an actor for the first time, repeatedly, again and again and again, which a lot of people don't realize, you're not just doing it one take and making it work.
Yeah, I tried to remain real open-minded, kind of like in the way jazz works, is you improvise and you kind of think as you go. And
sure.
And so that's the way I approached it, was like, this is going to be a piece of work that, is a process. So I didn't try to have any, like, I know what this is, because I knew I didn't. But it was kind of what I expected it to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was like, well, it all made sense. I'm like, all right, I've watched a lot of movies. I love movies. And it all kind of made sense. I'm like, that's how they got it to look like that. That's what they actually had to do that. And so I just kind of pieced it together like a chess thing.
It's probably similar to your music also, right? You're creating. So there's an unnatural unfolding of things, right? As it happens for both acting as well as composing music.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, music. It's usable. It's a usable way to think.
Well, that brings us actually full circle right there. Gene, you started your career wanting to get into music, and then all of a sudden you have the opportunity at the end of Uninvited for the Holidays, where you and your music partner, Andy Letke, who will be on the show too, an incredible artist.
We met in 1998 at Indiana University Music School.
Well, there you go. Back to the beginning of the whole day.
Yep.
1998.
Yeah.
Andy Letke. And now you guys have the opportunity to make the soundtrack.
Right.
For Uninvited for the Holidays. So now you're there. You have this opportunity to make this kind of Home Alone style soundtrack. And this is your first time at bat making a soundtrack with, not only that, one of your closest friends in the world that you met when you were back in college. How did it feel getting the chance to actually make the soundtrack and starting to work with Andy full time like that?
So in 1998, we kind of decided, hey, we're going to make music together the rest of our lives, right? And so that was always like, again, persistence and grit. If you keep at something and you give it 100%, you're probably going to get there eventually, right? So Andy, now we're doing soundtrack work for a movie, and it's like, this is actually happening. It's years later now that we conceived working together, but now we're doing it and it's real. And that's like a dream. It's a dream come true.
Soundtrack was great. I think the Uninvited soundtrack turned out fantastic. You guys did a great job on that. Time continues forward, and now you and Andy back in the saddle again. Soundtracks. You're now making a soundtrack for our latest series, 2076 America. Right now, it is a graphic novel, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. We're very proud of that. It's actually the #1 dystopian selling graphic novel. It was #1 sci-fi selling graphic novel. It's doing very well on Amazon. And you and Andy are creating this dystopian, really complex soundtrack together, which is very exciting. Tell us a little bit about that, because Andy's going to be on and you guys are going to be on together at some point. We'd love to hear a little bit more about, what you guys are doing right now working on that soundtrack.
Right. Well, Joe, you created a world that is really cool and juicy, in my opinion, as far as art goes. And it's like, great. So again, bring us the challenge, and it's just, I can't believe again that like the stuff that you put out to the universe years ago is just, if you stick at it, sometimes you get your dreams to come true, which is very weird, but that's the way it is when you keep trying.
You don't give up,
right? If you don't give up, if you don't give up, it just might happen. If you give up, ain't gonna happen.
No, you're right? For sure. Yeah.
So then, Joe, you created a world that musically, it's like, man, we got to do this justice, because it's so, the graphics are amazing, the artwork, the story, all these characters have, backstories and all that stuff. So, Andy and I are, again, now we're literally doing what we wanted to do starting in 1998. Now we're doing it here in 2023 together. It's ridiculous. So there's no effort when I play music. That's my natural. I mean, it's like breathing to me. So this is like, anything we can do musically is, I'm having a blast, and I think we're pretty happy with the way it's been coming out.
Yeah. Persistence is the thing you talk about, because I think, when you talk about this project, Tim Reeves, who's a previous guest on the show, I think he was the first person to read the original script. It was a 3-part movie series that I wrote actually in 2016 or 15. I mean, I think you read it back then too. Back then, and you just got to keep going and going. And finally, it comes out in 2023.
Yeah.
Right. So again, this is such a tough business. It's almost impossible. I mean, every hiccup, every hurdle, everything's going to stop you from trying to be successful doing this. And again, you just have to follow that dream and push forward, because if you don't, you talked about at the beginning, if you're not somebody guiding the way, if you're not saying, I'm going to just do this and get it done, you're never going to get there. I mean, there will always be every reason to quit and not keep continuing to succeed. So, on that note, where do you see Gene Hale in the next 5 years in this business? And where do you hope to be? Where do you want to be? And where do you see yourself being?
Well, I would say playing music for any production that I'm involved with in this business, right? And I would love to have a big hand in that, right? I see myself acting in things that we produce together, particularly, maybe other things, but I really enjoy the craft of acting, and I have an opportunity. I'm in something, right? So that, going to keep going with that trajectory over the next, say, 5 years and see where all this goes. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is everything I kind of mapped out. If I could say this is the way I want my life to be, it kind of is that way right now. So I don't, in 5 years, like, look what I just did since 2019, since we got together. Big, full circle things. It's interesting.
So you arrived. Journey is
I finally found
arriving every day.
This balance I've been searching for my whole life. Now I'm doing music, and it's real, and it's just a great experience. So when I get up in the morning and I get to compose music for like a purpose, I can't think of anything cooler for me to be doing as a person.
The top 3 favorite musicians, bands, right off the bat. Quick, no thinking.
Frank Zappa.
Yeah. Chris Victor approves.
Yeah, Frank Zappa's
got
all-time
one.
favorite. I would say Pink Floyd. The Kinks. I mean,
I like the Kinks too.
3 beautiful kids. You want them involved in the movie business, entertainment? Where do you see them?
Part of my motivation for trying to do something again, back to Uncle Jimmy, Joyce, do something spectacular. I figured if I did something in the movie business, that would be pretty spectacular, and that, hey, what a cool thing that my dad is in the film business. How many dads are in the film business? And I could afford them an opportunity if they chose. If they wanted to do this, they could do it, because it was part of my motivation was if I'm living my perfect balanced fantasy, right? Playing music for a living and, doing that, and my kids like the way that is, well, I'm glad I took all that risk and I stuck it out and I had grit, and, I at least show my dad did something, if nothing else.
Well, Gene, we appreciate you coming in. You are always a pleasure to hang out with, always an interesting guy. It's always a good time hanging out with you, my friend. Thank you very much for being here.
We're excited for having me,
Gene
Joe.
B. Hale III, America 2076, uninvited for the holidays musician. Check him out. He's out there, Gene B. Hale.